The night before my sister's wedding, I received a text from an unknown number. "She's not who you think she is. Check the basement now." I stared at the message, frozen, the silence in my childhood home suddenly louder than ever. My mother called me upstairs for tea. Melissa was humming in her room. Everything looked normal, too normal. But I couldn't stop shaking. What if they'd been lying to me my whole life? And why was my name, April, not in any family photo before age 6? I went downstairs. I opened the basement door. What I found wasn't just a secret. It was a warning I had never been meant to survive. The message kept flashing on my screen like a pulse. "She's not your sister. Basement, tonight." I blinked, half expecting it to vanish, but it didn't. The words stayed, sharp as broken glass. I stared at the number, no name, no profile picture, just a series of digits that meant nothing to me. A mistake, maybe? But then another text came in. It was a photo. Old, yellowed, torn at the edges, one of our family portraits from when I was little. My mother sitting in her garden dress, Dad with his arm around her, me, about 5 years old, clutching a teddy bear. But something was wrong, very wrong. Melissa wasn't in it. The date on the back was my 6th birthday. I remembered that party. The backyard balloons, the cake with too many candles, the cheap clown hired to entertain me, and the neighbors' kids. I remembered Melissa holding my hand as we cut the cake. At least, I thought I did. But in the picture, it was just me. Before I could process the confusion boiling in my stomach, I heard footsteps on the stairs. I shoved the phone into my hoodie pocket and turned. My mother stood there in her robe, holding a mug of tea. "You look pale," she said softly. "Long day?" I nodded, managing a tight smile. "Why don't you get some rest? Big day tomorrow." She stepped forward and kissed my forehead, something she hadn't done in years. Then she added, like an afterthought, "I locked your door. You need a good night's sleep." My throat dried. "You locked it?" "Just from the inside. I don't want you sneaking off to help with the decorations. Let the others handle it." I forced a laugh. "Right, sure." She smiled again, too warmly, then disappeared down the hallway. When I turned the doorknob, it didn't budge. I waited, an hour, maybe more. Just enough time for everyone to fall asleep. Then I picked the lock with a hairpin, the way I used to sneak into the pantry as a kid. The house groaned beneath my feet as I crept down the stairs. My heart pounded so hard I was sure it echoed through the walls. The basement door loomed at the end of the hallway, a chipped gray thing that had always felt too cold. We weren't supposed to go down there. Dad said it was dangerous, mold, old wiring, something about rats. But I knew better now, or I was about to. I took a deep breath and turned the knob. The air hit me first. Dust, mildew, something metallic underneath. The single bulb above flickered as I stepped onto the first creaking stair. I moved slowly, trying not to breathe too loudly. There was a shelf against the far wall behind old holiday boxes and broken chairs. And there it was, the red suitcase. I knew it instantly. It had sat in the attic years ago, until one day it vanished without explanation. I pulled it out, coughing as a cloud of dust exploded around it. It was heavier than I expected, and locked. I used the same hairpin, shaky fingers, sweaty palms, and clicked the latch open. Inside there were documents, old fragile paper, a few crumpled photos, a flash drive, and a vest tape in a plastic case labeled 1998. The first paper on top was a birth certificate, not mine. Name April Marie Lennox. Mother Margaret Lennox. Father unknown. I scanned the date, my birthday, my exact birth date. Same town, same hospital, but not the same name, not my parents. I grabbed the next paper. It was a medical report. Head trauma, age 5, patient name. April Marie Lennox. Note: temporary amnesia, placed in emergency custody. My hands started shaking. Then I picked up the photo at the bottom of the pile. It was me, or someone who looked exactly like me, standing beside a woman I didn't recognize. They were at a playground, smiling, holding ice cream cones. The girl had my eyes, my nose, even the same chipped front tooth I had at that age, but the woman? Definitely not my mother. The VHS tape felt hot in my hand. I didn't have a player, but the flash drive did the job. Upstairs in my room, lights off, headphones on, I opened the video file. The screen flickered, grainy footage of 2 little girls, twins, running around a backyard. One tripped and cried. The other helped her up and kissed her cheek. A woman off camera said softly, "April, don't tell Melissa. She'll make you disappear again." I paused the video, breath caught in my throat. Again? My reflection stared back at me in the laptop screen. But suddenly it didn't feel like me. It felt like someone else, someone I wasn't supposed to be. Melissa wasn't in any of these memories. Not really. So who was she? And who the hell was I? I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My body lay still in bed, but my mind was moving at light speed. By sunrise, I had copied the video from the flash drive to a secure folder and uploaded a still frame of the twins to a biometric recognition service, the kind journalists use to match missing persons. It was expensive, but I didn't care. 3 hours later, the report came in. Facial match, 97.4% probability. Twin sibling, subject not registered in active public records. My mouth went dry. Not only was the girl real, she had been erased. I wasn't an only child. I had a twin. And someone had buried her existence. I paced the room, rereading the birth certificate and hospital records I'd pulled from the red suitcase. All of it lined up with my own memories, except the name. April. That name was beginning to feel more like mine than Elena ever did. I couldn't confront Melissa or Mom, not yet. I needed more. Out of desperation, I started digging through online forums about missing children, family cover-ups, identity theft. That's when I stumbled on it, a blog called Mirror Gone. The entries dated back nearly 2 years, sporadic, emotional, full of rage and confusion. Whoever was writing it claimed to have been erased, raised in secrecy, and forced to watch another girl, her sister, live her life in front of the cameras. The entries were terrifyingly specific. She wrote about being drugged, shuffled between homes, told her memories were dreams. She described a basement with red wallpaper, a dog named Baxter, a stuffed bear with one eye, my old bear, my dog, my basement. In the last entry, posted just 7 days ago, she wrote, "I'm close now. She's getting married next weekend. They think I won't show, but I have to try. I don't want her to die not knowing the truth." The IP address trace put the post within 5 miles of my family home. She was here, or had been. Was she watching me? I pulled the curtains back and stared out into the street. For a second, I thought I saw someone, dark hoodie, standing across the street, staring up at the house. But when I blinked, they were gone. At dinner, I sat next to Melissa, watching her like a stranger would. She talked endlessly about flower arrangements and vows, laughing with Mom about how Elena always forgets the guest list. I asked her casually about her college years. Didn't you say you lived in Denver for a while? She paused, blinked. No, it was Portland. My stomach flipped. The college transcript I found in the suitcase had listed Denver. What dorm were you in again? Her eyes flickered. Why? I shrugged. Just wondering, trying to remember if I visited you or not. She smiled too quickly. You didn't. You had finals, or the flu. Something like that. She was lying. I knew it. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I went to the garage to get my charger. I opened my car door and froze. There was an envelope on the driver's seat. No name. Just my first initial, written in messy handwriting. Inside was a note. I don't know who you are, but you're not Elena. Melissa said you died. And yet here you are, breathing. Meet me tomorrow, noon, the old train yard. Come alone. No signature, just a final line. And don't tell Melissa, she's more dangerous than you think. I sat in the driver's seat for what felt like hours. My chest felt like it might crack open. Someone was playing games or telling the truth. If I wasn't Elena, who was I? And if Melissa had told someone I was dead, who did she bury in my place? I walked back into the house like a ghost, climbed into my childhood bed, and pulled the faded teddy bear into my arms. One eye was missing, just like in the blog post. I stared at the ceiling, feeling like a stranger in my own body. If everything I remembered had been manipulated, if every photograph, every story, every birthday had been carefully reconstructed, was I anything more than a role someone had cast me in? And if I wasn't the real Elena, was Melissa? Or was she just another actor in a story someone else wrote? I curled into a ball, heart thudding, a single thought echoing in my mind. If my whole life was built on lies, did I ever really exist? The next morning, I left the house before anyone woke. My car rolled through the foggy streets like a ghost ship as I headed toward the Shady Pines nursing home, a place we rarely mentioned and never visited. My Aunt Marjorie had always bade the family's embarrassment. Too dramatic, too paranoid, too broken. At least that's what Mom always said. She was waiting in a wheelchair near the window, hands folded in her lap, eyes dull from too much silence and time. But when she saw me, those eyes sharpened. You came, she said, almost like she'd been expecting me. I sat across from her, heart thudding. I need to ask you something about when I was little, about Melissa, about me. Her face twitched, then relaxed into something heavy with sorrow. Took you long enough. I didn't know where to begin, so I simply asked, "Who is Melissa?" Marjorie's lips trembled. Not your sister, at least not by blood, not really. She leaned in closer, voice dropping to a whisper. You got hurt. When you were 5, fell down the stairs. You were unconscious for days. Your mother, she panicked, thought the state might take you. They were already watching us because of the other girl. What other girl? She looked away. The one your mother brought home, Melissa, said she was fostering her, but it was strange. There were no papers, no social worker visits. Just one day she was there, smiling, silent, always watching you. I stared at her, frozen. After your accident, Marjorie said, things changed. Your mother started calling you Elena instead of April. You stopped asking about your twin, and Melissa, she started sleeping in your room. My throat tightened. My twin? You don't remember her? She asked gently. April, you and her were inseparable, until one day she just vanished. Your mom said she was sent away, but I never saw her again. She reached into her cardigan pocket, and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a silver necklace. On the back of the pendant was a name, April. "It was yours," she said. "You never took it off until the accident." I clenched the necklace in my fist, the metal warm from her hands but burning in mine. On the way home, I couldn't stop shaking. I pulled over at a gas station, sat there in the parking lot, and called a private investigator, someone discreet. I needed to know who Melissa really was, where she came from, and what else my mother had buried under that polished exterior of suburban motherhood. It took the investigator less than a day to send me a preliminary file. Melissa Ann Caldwell, born in a different state. Entered the foster system at age 6, removed from 2 placements for aggressive behavior. Once hospitalized for pushing a younger girl down a flight of stairs. Expelled from school at age 9 for locking a teacher in a storage closet. My fingers trembled as I scrolled. She had a past, a dark one, and none of it had ever been mentioned, not once. Then came the final detail. Melissa had spent time in a now-closed group home called Pine Hollow Youth Center. The director of that center, Margaret Lennox, my mother. I dropped the phone. I couldn't breathe. Mom hadn't just brought Melissa into our home. She had chosen her, handpicked her, to replace me, to rewrite our family. I left the car and wandered aimlessly until I found myself in a small park. I sat on a worn wooden bench, hands folded tightly in my lap, the necklace still clutched in my palm. Children were playing nearby, laughing, running, their joy sharp against the ache in my chest. A little girl ran up to me, her curly hair bouncing, and stared for a moment. "You look like my sister," she said softly. I forced a smile. "Where is she?" "She went away," the girl whispered, but I still remember her face. I turned away, blinking fast. When she left, I sat there in silence, letting the pain roll over me like waves. My entire identity, my family, the person I thought I was, it had all been orchestrated, curated, manipulated by the person I trusted the most. I closed my eyes and let the tears come. For the life stolen from me, for the girl I used to be, for the sister I might never meet again. The night before the wedding, the house was unusually quiet. Laughter echoed from the living room where family friends gathered. But upstairs, in the room I used to call mine, silence hung like fog. Melissa knocked once and walked in without waiting for an answer. She was still wearing her rehearsal dinner dress, flawless white, tailored to perfection, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So," she said, tossing a pearl earring onto the vanity. "Big day tomorrow." I nodded, careful. "You nervous?" She studied me for a long moment, then leaned casually against the dresser. "You opened it, didn't you?" I looked up. "What?" "The red suitcase." Her voice was calm, too calm. "You touched it. I knew you would." Blood drained from my face. She stepped closer. "You think any of this changes anything? Do you honestly believe your little discoveries matter? That she matters?" I didn't move. Melissa tilted her head. "It's too late now. Tomorrow's happening. Even if you drop dead tonight, I'll still say I do." I forced a tight smile. "Of course, wouldn't miss it." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Don't get in my way, April." The name hit like a slap. Then she was gone. My hands were shaking as I slipped the tiny recording device out from under my pillow and pressed stop. I had it, her threat, her confession. My phone buzzed, unknown sender. But the name wasn't unknown. April. The message read, I'm ready to come forward, but you have to show the world, all of it. I stared at the screen, the past few weeks crashing down on me like a tidal wave. If April was alive and she was willing to step out of the shadows, then I couldn't hold back. Not anymore. She deserved her name, her truth, and I deserved mine. The morning of the wedding was a blur of movement. Hairdressers, stylists, makeup artists floating around Melissa like bees to a flower. I stayed in the background, quiet, eyes alert, heart armored. Brandon seemed distant, distracted. He barely looked at Melissa. She didn't seem to care. Her focus was elsewhere. At noon, guests began arriving. Classical music floated through the air. The ceremony was set in the garden. Seats lined up beneath white drapery and chandeliers hung from trees. Picture perfect. Melissa walked down the aisle like royalty. Every step rehearsed, every smile a performance. Then came the vows. She took Brandon's hands, eyes shining with artificial tears. If someone had told me I'd find love like this, The screen behind them flickered. Static. Then video. The crowd gasped. On the screen was a recording of Melissa in my room saying, "Even if you drop dead tonight, I'll still say I do." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Then another clip. This one grainier. A child, barely 5, screaming. Another girl, her mirror image, pulled away by strangers. My voice crying, "April, wait!" The screen went black. And from the back of the aisle, a voice rang out. "That's me!" Gasps. Heads turned. She stepped forward slowly. April, alive, real. Wearing a simple black dress, hair pulled back, eyes blazing. Brandon stepped forward too, reaching for her hand, and then it hit me. He wasn't surprised, he wasn't shocked, because he knew. Brandon turned to the crowd. "My name isn't Brandon." Melissa's face twisted. "I'm a journalist with the Ledger, and this," he gestured to April, "is the real story. The sister you were never supposed to know existed." Camera flashes exploded. Guests shouted. Chaos erupted. But Melissa didn't scream, didn't cry. She calmly reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, tapped a code. An alarm chirped somewhere in the distance. Metal clanged. The garden gates slammed shut, all exits sealed. A mechanical voice echoed from hidden speakers. Security lockdown engaged, perimeter sealed. Everyone froze. Melissa smiled. "I told you," she said. Not even death would stop this wedding. The garden was silent except for the echoing mechanical voice and the clicks of locking gates. No one moved. Even the breeze had stilled. Melissa stood in front of the altar, her dress pristine, her expression unreadable. "I told you," she said again, quieter this time. "This isn't a wedding, it's a reckoning." Brandon reached into his jacket, probably for a mic or another device, but Melissa waved him off. "Save your exposé, you don't know half of it." She turned to the guests, to me, to April. Her eyes landed on Mom, who had finally stood, stiff and shaking. "You're all so eager to make me the villain," Melissa said. "But ask yourselves, who trained me? Who told me how to lie, how to act, how to erase people and become them?" Her voice cracked. It was her. All eyes shifted to Mom. Margaret Lennox didn't flinch. She simply adjusted her pearl necklace and said, "Enough, Melissa. You're embarrassing yourself." Melissa laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You think I'm the only one? You think this little scheme was mine alone?" No one breathed. "She trained us," Melissa hissed. "One after another. Elena wasn't the first. I wasn't the last. You think I wanted to be her? I had to be. Or else I would have ended up like the others." April stepped forward. "What others?" Melissa turned to her slowly. There were 5 before me, 5 children she brought in, trained, watched, corrected, disposed of. April's voice trembled. You're lying. She kept tapes, Melissa said. Every session, every punishment, every failure. My stomach dropped. Mom's voice cut through the tension like a knife. That's enough. No, I said, stepping forward. We deserve to hear it, all of it. Melissa's hand twitched toward her phone, but I stopped her. Don't. No more codes, no more traps, just the truth. She looked at me, truly looked for the first time. Her eyes were tired. Underneath the cruelty and coldness, there was something hollow, something scared. She made me sleep in your bed, Melissa whispered. Wear your clothes, copy your handwriting. She told me if I didn't do it right, I'd disappear too. Like the others, like April. April stepped beside me, her hand brushing mine. Her presence grounded me in the storm. Melissa's words poured out like a dam breaking. She called us drafts, said the perfect daughter was a composition. She was the composer. I was the closest she ever got. Until I started wanting things she didn't script. She paused, then added bitterly, like this wedding. Brandon stepped closer, voice low. You mean this setup wasn't part of her plan? Melissa laughed again. She told me to find someone with influence, someone with connections, not love, never love. Mom finally spoke, her voice calm, firm. Everything I did was to protect this family, to elevate us. Do you know how much I sacrificed? I turned toward her slowly. You didn't elevate us, I said. You manufactured us. Her lips curled slightly. And look how well it worked. You're still standing. But the others aren't, April said. Are they? Mom didn't answer. I pulled out my phone and tapped play. The recording began. Melissa's voice from the night before, low and threatening. You touched it. I knew you would. Even if you drop dead tonight, I'll still say I do. The guests gasped. Some stood. A few began recording. And this, I said, playing another clip, Melissa's confession about the red suitcase, the threats, the replacement. I looked at Brandon. You have the rest? He nodded and opened a live broadcast. Within seconds, media outlets began flooding the feed. The lockdown disengaged. Police arrived 15 minutes later. Melissa didn't resist. But before they led her away, she turned to me. Tears were finally falling, not rage-driven, not manipulative, just human. I didn't want to be her, she whispered. I just wanted to be someone, anyone. Her eyes searched mine. I wish I'd been April, but I'm just the broken copy. I didn't move, I didn't comfort her, but I didn't hate her either. You weren't given a choice, I said quietly, but you still made the wrong ones? She nodded once, like she already knew. The officers led her away. Then they turned to Mom. She refused to go quietly. I built everything, she screamed. You're nothing without me. I made you. But this time, no one listened. No one came to her defense. Later that night, I sat alone in the now empty garden. The chairs still lined in perfect rows, petals scattered across the lawn, like fallen memories. The moon hung heavy above. I thought about when I was 7, and Mom caught me lying to the neighbor about stealing cookies. Instead of scolding me, she took my hand, smiled, and said, "A good lie should make them question themselves, not you." Back then, I thought she was being clever. Now I know she was grooming me, training me, not for survival, but for control, for damage, and I had survived anyway, not because of her, but in spite of her. 2 months later, I stood barefoot in the middle of a sunlit clearing just outside the city. A white dress clung gently to my skin, not because someone told me to wear it, but because I chose it. No altar, no guests, just me, a mirror, and the sound of the wind brushing through the trees. I looked at my reflection and said the words aloud. I promise to protect you, to never abandon you, to tell you the truth, even when it hurts. The paper in my hand bore my new, real name, April Marie Lennox. Not the name they gave me, the one I chose, the one I was born into, the one they tried to erase. Changing it legally had taken weeks. Restoring it emotionally took something else entirely. But I did it, and in that moment, with no applause, no audience, no veil but the sky above me, I married myself. The day I reclaimed my name, April and I made a decision. We would take the nightmare we lived through and make it mean something. Together, we founded the Mirror Project, a nonprofit support network for women who had survived psychological manipulation, stolen identities, and long-term family gaslighting. At first, it was just an email address, a few hotline volunteers, and one borrowed office space. But word spread quickly. Victims came in waves, quiet, frightened, broken. Some had never told their stories. Some thought they were crazy. Some had been told, like us, that their memories were fake, their pain imaginary, their truth inconvenient. We told them otherwise. And slowly, piece by piece, they began to rebuild. So did we. In one of our speaking events, I watched April from backstage as she stood in front of a crowd of women. Some we'd helped, some still searching for their first foothold. She smiled softly and said, "When I was little, I used to wish for a sister, someone older, someone who'd protect me, fight for me, stand in front of me when the world got too loud." She looked straight at me, and now, she whispered, "I have two." I covered my mouth, blinking away tears. April wasn't broken. She never had been. She was fierce, vulnerable, and whole in ways I was just beginning to understand. The healing didn't come all at once. There were nights I woke up sweating, dreaming of locked doors and quiet, watching eyes. There were moments when I looked at my hands and didn't recognize them, but those moments passed, and when they did, something stronger always followed. Peace, not joy, not fireworks, not the movie-ending kind of closure, just peace. Melissa was placed in a high-security psychiatric facility. The court ruled her mentally unstable, but not unaccountable. She received treatment, structure, and isolation, the kind of safety she'd never had and possibly never wanted. She didn't write, didn't call, but I heard she stopped lying to the doctors. That was enough. Mom, Margaret Lennox, sat through the entire trial in silence. For the first time in her life, she didn't defend herself. She didn't protest. She didn't twist facts into prettier shapes. She simply sat, still, small. She didn't look at me when they read the verdict. She only lowered her head slightly, as if nodding to some private truth she'd finally admitted to herself. The media painted her as a manipulative genius, a fallen social worker turned monster. But I didn't need the headlines. I knew who she was and who I wasn't. She taught me to lie. I chose to tell the truth. The difference was everything. After court, April and I walked out together. No reporters waited. No one clapped. No one threw confetti. Just the sound of our shoes on concrete. The breeze brushing past like it was trying to get our attention. I stopped at the courthouse steps and looked up at the sky. Not to pray, not to speak, just to feel. For the first time in my life, I could feel the sun without guilt. I could breathe without waiting for permission. Freedom wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself with trumpets or parades. It whispered. It moved through the quiet, soft and invisible, like the breeze that lifted my hair that day. It sounded like my own name, finally spoken without fear. It felt like walking away from a building that once held my whole identity and realizing I'd left nothing important inside. That night, April and I sat on the roof of our apartment building, legs dangling, city lights flickering below. We didn't say much. She handed me a small box. Inside was a necklace, a silver pendant engraved with one word, truth. I held it in my hand and smiled. We didn't need to be twins to be sisters. We didn't need the same blood to have the same scars. What we had now, what we'd built from the wreckage, was more real than anything that had come before. I looked at her and whispered, "Thank you." She just nodded. "You saved me first." "No," I said, tightening the chain around my neck. "We saved each other." And as the stars blinked awake above us, I knew the story wasn't over. It was just the first chapter, written in my own handwriting.